subject to constant change. Every second, of every minute, of every hour, changes take place. These changes are perhaps invisible to us because our level of awareness is limited. Take, for example, how the things we do and say to the people we meet. All these things affect our lives, influence our destiny. And yet there seems to be some kind of fantastic order to the whole thing.
It never appeared in the Psychotronic Encyclopedia of Film. But this transgression does not make the movie any less psychotronic. And the omission would be corrected 10 years later when it appeared in Michael J. Weldon's follow-up, The Psychotronic Video Guide. His words still ring true today in describing the C-grade masterpiece. The acting, makeup, and rock music soundtrack are all wonderfully horrible. This is
Blood Freak! Let's get blood freaky! Blood freaky! We're gonna get blood! Blood freaky! Yeah!
To really exploit, to use. What do you think now the element of chance in a work of art is, having tried to control and devise chance to serve your ends? Do you think it's something subconsciously that the artist projects?
Yes, because chance may be unknown to us. In other words, we don't know the results of chance because we haven't got enough brains for that.
There you go. Well, it sure does smell delicious. I'm going to sit down here and I'll see if I can find
traditionally watched on Thanksgiving by families around the world. Blood Freak was directed by Brad F. Grinter, best known for pushing silver screen legend and Florida retiree Veronica Lake back into acting for her last feature, 1970's Flesh Feast. Brad had an unusual way of financing his films going back to the 1960s, when, as Hollywood, Florida was searching for a way to promote tourism in the area, he offered the city council a promotional video he would produce and direct. What came about a year later was not the promotional video he promised, but a full-length biker film set in the Florida Everglades called Devil Rider in 1969.
You know what a wasteland is, or else you wouldn't be watching Channel C at midnight yourself. There's another couple more interesting movies.
It did well when the townsfolk wanted nothing to do with the movie, and Brad, seeing his opportunity, began promoting his film in newspapers and local theaters across the nation using the leftover funds from the production. The slight profits he made, in combination with the money he grifted for Veronica Lake to produce Flesh Feast, allowed Brad enough funds for one last production, and that production was Blood Freak, starring another Florida native and a former star, Steve Hawks, of Spanish-language Tarzan films, who had been accidentally burned and disfigured on location while shooting his last Tarzan feature, Tarzan and the Brown Prince, 1970. Retired from acting and running a tiger sanctuary with a tiger Steve had rescued from the same ill-fated production, Steve would spend the next 3 decades after Blood Freak with his tigers. Steve also made quite a name for himself by the number of people around Florida who had been maimed and injured from tigers who had escaped from his sanctuary.
We live in a world subject to constant change.
We're going to do it by putting America first.
Blood Freak
Every
begins,
second.
as most great films do, with a middle-aged man chain-smoking in front of a plastic curtain, made up to look like cheap wood paneling. That man is none other than director Brad F. Grinter, here to explain that change is inevitable and that changes come about through catalysts, and that catalysts are typically hormones fed to livestock that we will ingest while reading the Bible and thinking about hot girls as we inevitably turn into giant papier-mâché turkey monsters that must be fed blood while we crave drugs. But there will be changes. In this case, that change would be the genetic mutation to a drug-addicted, murderous turkey who regularly bangs his human girlfriend. But I don't need to tell you something we all learn in 4th grade civics.
Is a person that will bring about change.
As Brad riffs, we meet Vietnam veteran Herschel, riding his cycle along the Florida interstate while ogling women. Herschel, is on the prowl, and he finds a lady that piques his interest. Angel, played by Florida native Dana Cullivan, who is both charmed by Herschel's distracted driving and furrowed brow. After she has car trouble, Herschel offers his assistance. So to thank him, she offers to bring him back to her family's compound, where they are greeted by her other sisters, Anne's drug party. Yes, these people are pot smokers, the worst humanity has to offer, and Herschel and Angel have walked right into the epicenter of wacky weed headquarters. Angel introduces Herschel to her sister Anne, who immediately tries to force Herschel onto a slippery slope from marijuana that will lead him to LSD, then to PCP, then to heroin, and eventually to his death. But his will is strong, and Angel's Christianity even stronger.
And you shouldn't defile me.
While Angel goes to change into something a little more Presbyterian, Herschel is left alone with Anne and her friends where he is awkwardly propositioned, and Herschel, not to be outdone, refuses the woman's advances, even more awkwardly, adding a touch of intimidation and threat to the mix.
And you're very beautiful. And you have a boyfriend.
So?
You shouldn't be acting this way with me, especially when you're with someone else.
You've got to be putting me on. God doesn't mind if I like someone else.
I just don't go for a girl that acts like a tramp, even if she's very beautiful.
Angel returns in a low-cut number built to assist in her evangelizing. And it is a good thing. As everyone knows, the conversation at drug parties always seems to move to our Lord and Savior toward the end of the night.
When you find time, I'd like to ask you a question.
Sure.
Don't get us
The evening continues, and Angel is obviously getting a contact high as her sermonizing gets weirder and weirder.
God says that anything that is not of faith is sin.
What about adultery? Isn't that a sin?
He says we commit adultery with sticks and stones.
At the same time, Anne's drug use has turned her feral, picking nits from Herschel's hair. Angel really kicks the party up a notch by breaking out her trusty Bible. This party is officially off the chain.
He first loved us. If a man say, I love God, and hateth his brother, he's a liar. For he that loveth not his brother, whom he hath seen, how can he love God whom he hath not seen? And this commandment we have from him, that he who loveth God love his brother also.
I can revive the wedding industry. Proving once again that rock and roll is here to stay.
Up to the village boys, and we talked for a while, and he said, and I went through the issue that you gave me, and I was pointing out like little things that I knew about the various movies that he was writing about in there, and he said, would I be interested in doing the same for some future issues, or at least for the next issue?
Herschel and Angel, all turned on with all talk of plagues and locusts, choose to take their party to somewhere a little more private, which upsets Anne, who has become smitten with Herschel after combing his hair for lice.
I think I better go with Angel.
Boy, what kind of a dope are you? Go ahead, turn into a Bible freak. See who gives a damn.
Anne, angered, goes back to her drug dealer to vent, and he offers the one solution to get Herschel to notice her and steal him away from Angel. And that solution is the one solution all drug dealers know best.
I'll turn Herschel on then.
Some more drugs. By this point, we have all been missing Brad and wonder what he's been thinking. Luckily, we get the chance to find out that Brad also has some thoughts about the Bible.
Order of things. And how far does it go? You know, most people go through life completely oblivious to the obvious things that predictably influence their destiny. Herschel has met two beautiful girls. One is conservative, responsible, concerned with, and contributes her time and efforts to the benefit of her fellow man. The other is the opposite. Or is she? Who are we to judge?
Yeah, this goes on for some time.
It's strange how many...
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Angel introduces Herschel to her Bible-loving turkey rancher father.
Interesting. I wish we had time to cover it more thoroughly. What are your plans and problems?
Her dad is immediately impressed with Herschel and offers him a job due to his huskiness.
That's easy. I could use a husky man like you out at my poultry.
Things are going well for Herschel as his romance with Angel blossoms and his huskiness making chores around her father's home easy fodder. Until Anne approaches with more weed and armed with words making it impossible to refuse Anne's Band-Aid container of joints.
No, thank you. No, thank you. How can such a big hunk of man be such a damn coward?
Herschel is no chicken.
I'm not a coward.
Which is a funny line because he'll turn into a turkey in a few moments. See, like, he's no chicken, he's a turkey, but not yet. You give it time.
Come on, Herschel, what's the matter? Herschel, let me relax.
Herschel, his inhibitions gone, uses his favorite pickup line to great success.
I sure wish you were different.
And they are mashing those nitty-bitties with heaping handfuls of man-ass. After a gratuitous sex scene, it's always best to insert a little palate cleanser, and we get that with more deep thoughts by Brad Grinter.
He would have to be much less a man.
An hour later,
you should have set the alarm. You know I promised Angel I'd go to the poultry range this morning about that job?
it was very inconsiderate of Anne to not respect Herschel's time and his commitments, especially when he has an appointment at the All Poetry Ranch about that job. The head rancher, overlooking Herschel's poor time management skills, gives him the job. And Herschel immediately begins touching turkeys and meeting his co-workers.
Lenny, Gene, this is Herschel. He's going to be with us for a while. They will tell you what to do. Glad to have you with us.
Boy, he sure is husky.
You'll be doing odd jobs for us around the ranch and the lab here.
And if you want to make a little extra money, you can help us with some of our experiments in the lab.
Herschel knows a good deal, and when two randos in lab coats offer extra work with their experiments, he is 100% on board. And for the next 15 minutes, we get a montage as Herschel tries to figure out what eggs are, slaps some gobblers, and throws a turkey. But slowly, Herschel remembers he's addicted to the marijuana now and needs a fix. And discovering that Herschel is about to die from CBD withdrawals, calls her drug dealer who, because of the drug dealer code to always be there when needed, comes prepared with a joint in hand. Herschel is saved through the heroism of another of America's essential workers, the drug dealer. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, it's another day of work for Herschel as the turkeys are flocking. And he's a bit nibbish. So Herschel sits down for a quick bite of experimental turkey and some smooth jazz guitar. The other turkeys look on in horror. The tryptophan proves to be too powerful for Herschel, and he collapses behind the bushes to the odd strains of turkey sound effects. While Herschel rests, Anne and Angel's father gets to stretch his acting muscles, and what muscles they are.
I don't care. He's still a man. The drug could be worn off by now. That is possible, isn't it?
Yeah, it could, Mr. Nolan. Honest, sir, I didn't think it could have any effect at all on a human.
You didn't think?
That night, Herschel awakens to spasms as he begins to transform. And lurches back to Anne's bed. She is awakened, and once her eyes adjust, she discovers Herschel's new form. If the Odessa Steppe scene of the silent masterpiece Battleship Potemkin, 1925, has an equal, it is what you are about to behold. This is the full scene, uncut for time, so you may experience in its glorious entirety, though we will include a small gauge in the right-hand corner of the screen as a sad marker for its inevitable conclusion.
And when I woke up, I was like this. I don't have time to write all of it. I need some stuff. Maybe you can help me. Please. God, Herschel. I just can't believe you're here like this. Do you think the effects of it will ever wear off? What if it never wears off? Gosh, Herschel, you sure are ugly.
As Anne contemplates life with Herschel, post-turkey, and thinks about their love, their children, their future, I dare you, yes, I dare you, to find another American film with the guts, nay, the courage to capture the true essence of a romance between a young woman and her lover man turkey as Anne deals with aversion, guilt, and yes, eventually, poultry seduction.
You know I love you. I've got to be dreaming this whole thing, Herschel. So I guess the pretty girl in the scene should stick with the monster she created. But what would it be like if you stayed like this? If we got married? What kind of life would we have together if you stayed that way? What would the children think of their father looking like that? My God, what would the children look like? What would they think? Would they look like their father? Herschel, what are you doing? Herschel? Oh. Herschel? Herschel? Oh my God.
Post-turkey coitus, Anne phones Angel with devastating news and not one to be left out has things to say.
What happened to Herschel? I know it's all my fault.
Interesting how when we come to moments of despair, when we can't seem to solve our problems any other way, then, but not until then, we turn to God.
God would prefer to be left out of it. While everyone is dealing with things, Turkey Herschel goes on a stroll and comes across a woman suffering from restless leg syndrome and gives her a lift. Always the good Samaritan, Herschel then comes to the aid of a crazy lady who is upset, but then also happy about something, so much so that she decides to lean against a tree and pleasure herself. Concerned about her well-being, Herschel grabs her by the face, to the crazy lady's squeals of enjoyment. A third woman, lost in the Florida Everglades, gets out of her car, walking erratically amongst the alligators and discarded condom wrappers. Before discovering Herschel, who has hung the crazy lady upside down from a ladder to increase blood flow to her brain. But his treatment has had ill side effects of too much blood to her brain, and in an emergency operation, Herschel installs a rudimentary blood spigot in her neck to release extra pressure it was causing. Shockingly, Herschel's treatment works as the woman's blood had been infected with strawberry Fanta. A fan, Herschel couldn't say no to having a taste of the delightfully German soda, as the third woman watches and screams absurdly.
Only things could get back to normal.
Don't cry, Anne.
I guess there's no use hoping for that.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, Anne puts a support group together of two sketchy dudes as a young woman and a middle-aged creepy uncle sneak into the back seat of a car to share their insulin. and having drunk far too much of the crazy lady's Fanta blood, Herschel attempts to get in on their stash, as the uncle bravely sneaks out of the car with courageous vigor. Meanwhile, back at that ranch, Ann takes a much-needed nap, as Turkey Herschel gobbles in the woods, and the drug dealer and his distributor decide to come by and check on Ann to see how she's napping. The distributor, wanting to be extra diligent, double checks on Ann by groping and manhandling her. Like so many of these horrifying situations, the groping leads to strangling, and before you know it, Ann is just another statistic. Panicked, the drug distributor escapes to Florida's least safe industrial area to practice his skills of walking backwards. Herschel arrives, but boy are his feet killing him. Still walking backwards, the drug distributor bumps right into Herschel, and Herschel shows the distributor how to use the industrial jigsaw. Exhausted, Herschel falls asleep, and now at peace, dreams of the last time he spent time with his family during his favorite holiday, Thanksgiving. Blood Freak was released in 1972. It was written and directed by Brad F. Grinter, and it starred Steve Hawks. Stay psychotronic, everybody.
Blood Freak!